Well, if there's anybody who decides to show up on here, welcome to the Authors of the Round Table. With the host we have is Arbiter. He's kind of but he does a lot of podcasting himself. So give him a whole round of applause to that. And
Hello, everyone.
I will make the appropriate clapping in the background, the cheers, because my audience is a bunch of ghosts.
Yeah, and hello, everyone. As Adina said, my name is Arbiter on Discord, but I also go by, or actually, my real name is Gabriel Garcia. I'm an Inkitt author, and I'm also the host of the podcast on Anchor, Tales from the Wandering Scribe. And I had both Timothy and Maverick on the podcast. And I don't know, I think Maverick is, what is the word? AFK something, but hopefully, because he's here, but we just
Yeah.
can't hear him yet. So he's probably setting up his audio, probably getting ready. I could have sworn I heard him for a second. Maverick, if you're there, just say something, say something. Let me know you're still there.
Can you hear me?
There we
Yep, we
go.
can hear you. For some reason, your icon, when it's not, the outline's not glowing green, so we don't know if you're talking.
Huh. Um, it does seem to do it with on my end. I tried turning on Open Broadcast Studio and it just turned off all sound.
Oh, that's not good. Everything's still good on your end, though?
Seems to be.
Okay. All right. Well, this is our second one. Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience of ghosts?
Yeah, my name's John Gifford. Um, I go by the moniker of Maverick's Ghost because when I was in college, I had a real taste for the film Top Gun. And now, of course, you got the sequel, Top Gun Maverick.
Nice. I really hope no one tries to take, like, infringe copyright on you because of the name, because you know that always happens.
Well, I picked up the name because I basically liked Tom Cruise's character's attitude more than the character. I thought the character was arrogant, but I liked his unpredictability. It's the fact that
All
he
right.
didn't. It's the fact that he didn't fly by the book. You know, the two main characters in the first film were Maverick and Iceman.
Yes.
Ice, Iceman flew absolutely by the book. If the book said you do this maneuver when an enemy gets in this position, he did it. Where Maverick, it was a case of he did whatever he thought, whatever he felt. So they have this one breakdown session where he's with Kelly McGillis's character, and she's describing how he pulled this maneuver, and he pulls what they call a no, let me get this straight. He pulled a high GS to get away from his opponent, which is everything that the book said he shouldn't do, but he got away with it.
You know what's funny? A lot of my friends have seen the second Top Gun Maverick, Top Gun 2 Maverick. I've never even
Yeah.
seen the first one. I've never seen Top Gun.
Um, I've seen the first one. I haven't seen the second one yet. I've heard some reports that the second one got interfered with by Beijing because they wanted to make the main bad guy Chinese. They wanted to make the main opponent Chinese fighters, and Beijing basically said, if you do that, we won't show it anywhere in China.
That's interesting. Mm, well, then again, I'm having up with a lot of movie news. Actually, recently, last night, I actually watched the movie 355. Good movie. It was pretty much campy to a degree. It was a good. And what was it that I actually recently just watched also? I also just started watching The Mission with Robert De Niro and Jeremy Irons. Have any of you guys heard of that movie?
No, I haven't done that one. I've been mostly watching The Boys from Amazon. That is a train wreck of
Oh,
a superhero show. Fun to watch
I've
though.
seen
Most of the superhero stuff is a train wreck. Apparently, DC and Marvel keep changing the timeline every 5 or so years, keep revamping it completely, and then they'll supply their characters with like an 80-year background, which doesn't fit the new timeline.
Oh, of
yeah,
course.
that's what a lot of people say about for Phase 4. That people don't know like what's the overall plot of Phase 4 because all the movies were connected because they were all connected to a specific phase. Phase 1 was
Yeah.
pretty much leading up to the Avengers. Phase 2 was, you could say, Avengers and then towards the Infinity War. Phase 3 was the Infinity War to Endgame. Phase 4, they would say, is supposed to be multiverse, where you now are supposed to have like the multiverse characters with
Yeah.
and Conqueror and all those characters.
Well, I think Phase Four, since Disney, Disney is soaked up so awfully much other parts, they can actually try to pull together the rest of, the some of the more favored groups like the X Men, Fantastic Four, and bring them in, along with like the rest of the DCU, which is kind of cool. Um, but as said, they had to complete. They're going to have to, basically have to completely, revamp the universe at that point. That's why you use the multiverse to do such a thing. DC's done it.
That's what they
DC does it
I,
every
f-
4 or 5 years.
I forget the
they did
name of
with
it, but there's a brand new comic that's just been launched.
the
They
Dark
went on,
Crisis.
could be, does ring a bell, but they needed about 200 grand to get it going. They've had donations on Patreon of over 1.5 million in two
Ah, that's
days.
the rip of us. I know which one you're talking about.
Wow.
Yeah, just
And
say
they've got this code of conduct that they've actually published as part of it, saying rule one, customers matter. So they're actually going to listen to fans. Rule two, canon matters. So they're actually going to stick to their storyline. They're not going to revamp the storyline just because it sounds like a good idea every 5 years.
I think DC has had, what is it? Crisis on Infinite Earths. You've had the Multiverse War. I think, yeah,
Flashpoint.
there's been like Flashpoint Paradox.
Yeah,
Um, the Justice League Villain War with Mother of the Anti-Monitor, the Monitor, that whole crisis, and then Dark Crisis is supposed to be the last Crisis War because now you have the new Justice League, are the sons,
Yeah.
daughters, apprentices of the Justice League.
I've heard about that new Justice League. I saw there's a podcast on YouTube called the Lotus Eaters where they review politics and wokeism and everything else. And two of them were comic book fans, and they brought up this new Justice League, and boy, did they panic.
I think people are like, when I was reading about it, I was like, okay, you're killing off the Justice League. But as you know, in comic book lore, no one stays dead for too long. I mean, you cannot realistically in marketability. That's probably not a word, but in terms of
marketability.
marketability, yeah, that's the word. Thank you.
You can't keep
You're
them
not
dead.
going to kill off the entire Justice League and have the new characters show up. Be the new Justice League. They could on their own, but let's be real. No one dies in comic book world for long. They always come back, or they're trapped in the dimension for 20 years and they come back, like what they did for Adam Strange. I think they brought him back. And
Have you read any Matthew Riley?
I don't think I know about Matthew Riley. I don't know
He's
about the work he's done.
he's an Australian author, and he writes action books. I've only got one of them, which I got as a cheap paperback from a second-hand store. But he writes about this character he calls Scarecrow. He's a U.S. Marine captain called Shane Schofield, and he's
Okay.
called Scarecrow because he's got two vertical scars running through his eyes.
Ew. It's kind of
He
interesting.
has to wear dark glasses all the time because he's sensitive to light.
Okay.
But
All right.
if you read some of Riley's books, they're action adventure that would make, well, if they ever tried to make a film of it, you'd have the film companies literally going bankrupt just to do the special effects. So in Scarecrow, for example, he's taken prisoner by the French government, and they put him on their flagship Richelieu class nuclear aircraft carrier.
Trying to jump and interject, but is this modern times when the story's taking place?
Kind of. It talks about things like the conflicts in Afghanistan, but he changes subtle bits. Like
Okay.
at the start of Scarecrow, his girlfriend has to plant a laser homing diode in an underground mine in Afghanistan because they're going to fly a Moab bomb into it. And the Moab doesn't actually use laser homing, it uses GPS.
Okay.
So he changed it because it fitted the story.
All
So
right.
he modifies bits, but his bad guys are the French government. And they capture Shane Schofield, put him on this aircraft carrier, and they're intending to expose him to the jet blast of one of their Raphael fighters as it takes off.
Ooh, that just sounds painful.
Yeah, well, he manages to break his bonds. He then grabs hold of a Russian RP-7 grenade launcher. That's the big stovepipe one with the rocket on the end.
Right.
And he has a specific polonium-headed rocket that he shoots down the air intake to the nuclear reactor.
Dang.
this rocket then goes off, and it explains in the book that actually this polonium warhead has got two parts to it. The first part is just a standard explosion because a nuclear reactor generates hydrogen gas a lot. And this standard explosion takes out the hydrogen gas regeneration system. So hydrogen gas starts to build up inside the reactor, and then the second charge goes off, igniting the hydrogen. He
Right.
causes he causes an explosion in the nuclear reactor of this immense aircraft carrier.
Oh no.
Consider something the size of the, I don't know, the Lexington, maybe the biggest aircraft carrier in the world, the Theodore Roosevelt. He causes enough of an explosion for it to break it in half.
How'd the French get so much money?
Well, that's the thing about this book. But he causes so much of an explosion, it breaks this thing in half, and the whole thing goes down. So if you
My
were to
gosh.
ever try and put that into a film, you've got to try and blow up an aircraft carrier.
Oh, they'll find ways to do CGI. They'll find ways to do it because there's no even replicate a size ship like that.
Oh,
Be a lot of
you
money.
you've really got to read the story. It's fantastic. It's all action all the way, every second.
Okay.
But I bring him up because one of the main characters is Shane Schofield's girlfriend, another captain in the Marines called
Right.
Gant. She's codenamed Fox, and during the book, she's actually captured by the bad guys and beheaded on a guillotine.
Ooh,
And
guillotine French. Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Riley makes a statement at the back of the book saying he really had sleepless nights over whether he could kill off one of his lead characters.
Yeah, I mean, George R. R. Martin, we know, doesn't really care about lead characters. I mean, he killed off so many and watched us suffer for it. So,
I'm pretty sure he just had a dartboard, had names on it, and he'd toss it. That's the one I'm getting rid of in this book. Oh, I mean, that looks
yeah.
like it hit in two. Okay, we'll get rid of both of them.
Oh
Well,
man.
my favorite character though has got to be Shane Schofield's sidekick. It's a big female marine. I mean, we're talking 6'7", very muscular, and she's got a false leg because it was bitten off by a shark.
Okay. All right.
And she's got a code name of Mother.
Mother. All right. I like where this is
That's be-
going.
that's because she has the attitude that she's a mother effer.
Oh my gosh. For some reason, I'm just getting a lot of 80s vibes from this, and I
And
don't know
there's
why, and I
this,
love it.
there's this quote in the book that goes, "Death comes for everybody, but there is only one person that death is scared of, and that's Mother."
Oh my gosh. Okay. After when this is done, Maverick, you gotta send me like a private message of the book title and of the author because I actually want to read that
Well,
now.
there's a whole series. I've only got one, which is about the third in the series, but it
Okay.
starts with one called Area 51. Then he does one called Ice Station Zebra,
Hmm. All
and
right.
he's dealing with this ongoing thing with the French government of trying to take over the world, and they're using. Have you heard of Majestic 13, the so-called Illuminati?
Oh, I've heard of like name Illuminati used in a lot of other media
Yeah.
fiction. Yeah.
Well, if you watch any X Files, there's this thing called the Majestic 13, which is 13 members that are seeking to run the U.S. government in secret. Well,
Hmm.
in his case, Majestic 13 are all the industrialists from around the world. And they've got this plan to send the world into chaos, to put it into a new Cold War. They are going to launch nuclear missiles onto all the nations of the world from freighters that are camouflaged to look like they belong to their enemies. They call it Project Chameleon, and I can't remember what the other name was because it comes in two parts: the missiles and the ships, and they're made to look like they're coming from their enemy. So
It
it sparks off a nuclear war.
sounds very similar to actually I was reading for Metal Gear Solid with Big Boss and his mentor about the Patriots who
Yeah,
believe that violence and destruction could be controlled and creating a new world order. It kind of almost sounds
yeah.
very similar to the Patriots from the Metal Gear
Well,
Solid universe.
well, in this case, the missiles have a disarm system that's universal. And
Hmm?
this disarm system comes in three stages. One, you've got to be in wireless contact with the missile, which means you've got to be no more than about 15 meters away from it.
Right?
Two, you've got a um, what they call a response tablet, where it flashes up lights in a random sequence that you then have to copy onto a second pad. So you need amazing reflexes, which is what Shane Schofield has. He has absolutely astounding reflexes. He's one of, I think, 7 people across the world that have the highest rated reflexes.
Right?
And then you have to put in a special number that changes every month that has to be calculated to be able to hit the disarm code. The number they choose is what they call a Mersenne prime number. You know what a prime number is, yes? 1, 3, 5, 7, 11. Well, a Mersenne prime number is 2 to the power of a prime number minus 1 that has to itself be a prime number. So the sixth prime number, which is what Shane is told is the disarm code, is over 131,000 because it rises so incredibly quickly.
Dang.
So he's got to get within 15 meters of the missile. He's got to pass this response test, and then he's got to put in the number. Otherwise, the missile won't disarm. And he's only got he's only got 3 attempts at any given missile.
Sounds like this author was either former military to be that precise and detailed, or has studied and researched a lot of covert operations, military operations.
I don't know if he's former military. I do know he's in Australia.
He must have done a lot of research to make sure it makes sense.
But it's fantastic. The final missile that he's supposed to disarm, he doesn't get to disarm in time. It actually launches and it's heading towards Europe, and it's going to drop itself practically on, I think it's Berlin. And he thinks, okay, we've got to follow this missile.
Because why not?
Well, you can do the Captain America thing and just ride the missile.
Well,
that's an easy way to follow it.
Conveniently, where he is hosting an air show, and they've got one of the only 2 X-15s left in the world. So he takes one, gets in the cockpit with this pilot that he's managed to befriend, who follows the missile in an X-15 craft.
Oh my gosh.
He starts to do the response code as the missile starts to arc over into a dive down onto the city.
Oh jeez.
Talk about
what I mean by action.
Yeah, talk about
you're never bored.
Yeah.
No, I mean there's a great scene where he's driving one of the world's most expensive sports cars in a race against 2 semi-trailers that are trying to take him out.
I sure hate to see the insurance claim on this. Yeah, I sure hate to see the insurance claims on these.
It makes James Bond look like kindergarten.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
He's driving this sports car, and he manages to. This is how he gets caught by the French. He drives completely off the mountain road that he's on with this sports car because one of the things that's attacking him is an enemy helicopter. He puts the car into the helicopter.
Oh my gosh, of course not. Of course you would.
Fast and the Furious action going on there.
And everybody's like, Shane must be dead because they see this huge explosion. Oh, he must be dead. And the next thing you know, he actually fell into the water at the base of the cliff, unconscious, and the French fished him out, and they've got him on their carrier.
Oh my! No, this sounds actually very similar to what I watched like a while ago. The Terminal List on Amazon.
Yeah, I've heard
really
about
great show. Really, really great show. Great acting, great story, political thriller. Character Jack Reese, who's the Navy SEAL. Find out, well, don't want to spoil it, but he goes on this revenge quest, and there are instances in this show he should have died. He doesn't. And there's 5 books with this character, and the author Jack Carr, who's written him, found out is actually a former Navy SEAL himself. So everything you read and you see is accurate to how a SEAL would operate. It's honestly probably my favorite show on television right now.
I'll have to take a look at it then. Let's go to the terminal list.
Yes, The Terminal List. It's
Okay.
about 8 episodes. You could binge it in a day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's one
it's
thing.
been getting
One thing about
it's been
things have been
getting
getting
heaps of
shorter.
criticism. It's been getting heaps of criticism.
Oops.
Critics will always. Oh, what was that?
Oh, sorry. I just
I think.
thought we're breaking up. That's all.
Okay. Eric, are you there? I think you broke up for a second.
Yep. Looks like he got. Oh,
Sorry,
there he is.
microphone lead keeps pulling out.
Oh,
Okay.
I thought you said
You were
microphone
saying something
leaking.
about.
It's like it's running out of fuel. What? It's got a leak in the fuel tank for the microphone.
No,
Oops.
um.
it's got a loose USB lead.
Okay. Okay. You're saying
But
that
the
show has
ter-
gotten
the
its fair
ter-
share of criticism.
yeah, the terminal list has been getting a lot of criticism from a certain lobby that say it glorifies guns and the Second Amendment people.
Yay. Gotta love these
Well,
folks.
you can say that about you can say that about any other show that's kind of the same genre.
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, there was one that got the Border Patrol a hell of a lot of criticism because of Don Johnson. I can't remember the name of the film or program, but he shoots a pregnant woman on the border. He shoots her in the stomach, and everybody assumes that that's what border agents do now.
Don't know that show. If it did happen, it probably didn't last for too long. It was like a limited series, but I don't. No, the name's not ringing a bell.
Hmm.
Mm. But on that same thing, you actually know. Actually, let's see. Do I still? Yes. If you ever do find, oh boy, sorry, right behind like my collection of comic books. But if you ever do get a chance to read a good comic book or a good story, this one, Yishun Shin. Holy mackerel, the author does not hold anything back in this comic. He literally talks about how the Japanese. Sorry, just getting my water fell down. Pretty much the Japanese during the 1590s invaded Korea, and their brutality was appalling. Even a
Well, look at what happened when the Japanese invaded Manchuria in 1937.
yep, yep.
The so-called rape of Nanking.
Oh yeah, I remember. I actually saw the movie, Nanking, the Chinese movie. Yeah,
Yeah,
that movie
the
was.
brute the brutality they had was absolutely appalling.
Yeah,
I
and I'm
mean,
actually kind of nervous
I,
about writing that part in my book, as one of my books I'm writing is about the Japanese invasion of Korea in the 1590s. So that's gonna be interesting to write about the brutality because I've written violent scenes or fighting scenes, but I've never written those kind of descriptions. So
The
it's gonna be
aftermath and
tough.
the aftermath and everything that goes along with that type of stuff.
Hmm.
Especially if
yeah,
the
I
way the
get the same
society
when
is at the
trying to write.
time it was normal. It's like, wow,
I
it's
get the same
still,
when trying to write horror scenes because I can make it gory, but I can't make it scary. If I'm supposed to try and scare the reader, it just doesn't feel scary.
Yeah, that's what I've always heard. Like when you're doing like horror with gore, sometimes gore is more of like shock value, whereas horror is more of like the senses.
yeah. Oh, I see.
Yeah, well,
Hearing.
The thing is, even when you're writing this type of stuff, it's you have to place yourself into that position for the first place. And it's like, ew, do I really want to write this?
Yeah.
It's like I've written some things like I'm looking at this, delete, 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 and let no one else read this ever again
Well,
because this is too
I was
cringy. It's
I
like,
was told that there was a guy who tried to create a horror movie, shot the whole thing, and then showed it to his test audience, and they just laughed their asses off.
Ooh, that's not good.
it just becomes a
Because
comedy at that point.
instead of being scary, they thought it was a comedy.
Oh man. And speaking of comedy on horror, have you heard of that now Winnie the Pooh has been made into a horror movie?
Oh yes, yes,
God.
yep. It's called winning. It's called
And
win,
from Maverick's reaction, he's
it's
not
called
gonna
Blood and Honey.
Yeah. It's
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 mostly
like
because of the part of the Pooh uh, license or copyright has gone into public domain, so they can use
yeah.
some
So,
of the characters.
so Xi Jinping's going to go on a rampage, is he?
Exactly.
Oh gosh, that's why Winnie the Pooh was canceled in China because for some reason people made the correlation. Well,
It's
that's
the
not
hair.
public.
It's the hairstyle.
Winnie
It
the Pooh
makes
has no hair. He's bald.
no, no. But if you look at the shape of his head, it resembles Xi Jinping's hairstyle. So, all of the
Oh,
protesters
that's
against the CCP were using him as a meme
oh,
in,
that would explain it.
instead of naming Xi Jinping, which of course would get them thrown into prison.
Right, right, yeah. I think for Disney, they said the copyright is as long as the new Winnie the Pooh does not look like theirs, because they still own the copyright to that version of Winnie the Pooh, it's fine. Then Winnie the Pooh could literally be anybody. But just the concept of a horror movie with Winnie the Pooh. Well, then again, you
Uh,
had the Banana
Play,
Splits, which was a horror
play,
movie.
playing poo sticks with dynamite.
Yeah, just
Oh my gosh, that movie's just gonna be more comedic than horror because no one's gonna take it seriously.
Well, I, I used to have a computer game. It was one of those little free games that you could get off a website. Um, the Dutch had a TV program called the Teletubbies that came to the UK.
Oh gosh, don't
gosh,
get
I
me
remember
started on
that.
those. I
Yeah,
remember
I
those.
remember being traumatized by an adult by looking at that. It's, what the hell am I?
this
Yes, there's
How
one
did they? How
banned
much smoke?
episode.
How much people? How much did you smoke when making this? I mean, what kind of
yeah,
drugs were you guys actually on?
yeah. Well, this game was called Teletubbies Must Die,
Oh, I've heard of that game. I've heard of it. Yeah.
and you had them at three different ranges. So at long range, you used the sniper rifle,
Oh my gosh.
and you regularly got headshot.
Oh brother.
At medium range, you had a shotgun, and at close range, you had a pistol or a chainsaw.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this is
Oh.
gonna get so demonetized.
Oh. Yeah, there's a lot. Well, there's a lot of things on YouTube that somehow get past the demonetization, which should be demonetized. So we're fine.
Well, the thing is,
They
I don't have enough subscribers to even can be considered monetized, so it doesn't matter.
they made a porn they made a porn version of the
Oh
Teletubbies.
gosh. Why not? Oh jeez. Well, nothing's sacred, as you know that much. Actually, did you know there's actually one banned episode of the Teletubbies because it was too scary?
That doesn't surprise me. It would terrify
It's literally
me.
just a lion who's just growling, and the music was so like ambiance and so like eerie. That's why it got banned.
Not because of the content in general.
No, no. If we want to talk about a movie, a kids movie that is violent and is dark, yet at the time it's PG. Watership Down.
Oh yeah, was it the old fashioned, the old animated one?
As the
Yes, not
motto
the
as the
Netflix
motto
one.
That's
says,
the newer
as the
one then.
motto as the motto says, you've read the book, you've seen the film. Now eat the pie.
I remember watching Watership Down. And it's like, dang, that's pretty violent. But then again, I found there was a lot of UK shows back in like what the 80s and 90s, or at least 70s, for some kid shows, I think it was like, what was it like? It was a group of animals that were together. You had like two hedgehogs, a snake, badger, a fox, and even in that show, a lot of characters died, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I saw a YouTube video from Jerry Anderson, the creator of Thunderbirds.
Hmm?
When he launched Captain Scarlet, he showed it to his kids, the very first effective pilot episode, and his son ran screaming from the room.
Wow.
And apparently, he had serious second thoughts about whether he was capable of launching it as a kids program, because when you compare it to the Thunderbirds, it's a lot darker.
It's
Yeah.
called Captain Scarlet.
Yeah, Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons.
Okay, I gotta check that out then.
Well, it's essentially mankind goes to Mars, and the two Spectrum agents that go there see a Martian city that is hosted by the Mysterons. The Mysterons are invisible. Jerry explained it as well. He didn't want to give them any sort of certain look as Martians, just in case the probes that NASA had sent off, I think it was the previous year, actually came back and said there is no life on Mars. So he made them
Oh.
invisible.
Okay.
And
Okay.
one of these Spectrum agents opens fire because a module comes towards them to scan their vehicle and he thinks he's under attack. So he blows away the entire city.
Oh,
And
brother.
for this, the Mysterons get pissed at the human beings on Earth and decide they're going to destroy Earth in return.
Not.
Sounds like Mimbari.
Oh man.
Babylon 5. That was one race you
Like,
Never
did
seen
not.
Babylon 5.
Oh, well, okay. Then you have to go back and take a look and find it. It's probably one of the best sci fi shows out there. It came out at the same time as Deep Space Nine. There's some parallels that
yeah,
kind of run along with both Star Trek Deep
I remember.
Space
I
and
remember
Babylon
Babylon
5.
5.
That has
I
some.
remember.
Babylon 5 has some of the best lines, uh, character development, probably I've seen in a very, very long time. Uh,
There's a scene I remember where the Babylon 5 are trying to defend the station, and the Earth
Forces,
forces are
yeah.
trying to take it over. And
This the
Delenn,
Lin shows up.
The Minbari ambassador shows up and literally parks her Minbari cruiser between the two and tells the Earth forces to leave now.
Yeah, basically the
And
line.
they're like, this is nothing to do with you. Get out of the way. And he goes, she actually sits there and says, there's only one man that has ever faced a Minbari onslaught. He is behind me.
You
You
are
are
in
in
front
front
of me.
of me.
If I were here, I'd be somewhere else. Oh yeah,
Okay.
Delenn was, you know, if you're going with strong female characters, Delenn is probably one of those best examples of that. Feminine at the same time. You don't want to get her cross. She gets pissed. She's gonna tear everything apart, and does it with style
Man.
too.
Oh man. Oh, and since we're on the topic of sci-fi, have you guys heard of the Halo TV show that came out not too long ago?
I've heard about it, but I haven't really watched it. Mostly because of the simple fact, as with everything now, a lot of their streaming platforms, it's just become cable all over again. We want to charge
Yeah.
you $20 a month, $20 a month, $20 a month, $20 a month, $20 a month. Everybody wants $20 to $15 a month. It's like, okay, no, that's just fine. If I'm going to do something, I'm probably going to choose one at a time and do it that way because I don't have time to watch 5,000 channels in the first place.
Yeah. I've
So
I
seen.
saw a
is
I
that
saw a
on?
clip
Is
of
that
them.
on? Is that on? Is that on Paramount or is
Yes.
that?
Yes, it is.
So that's the same. That's
That's on Paramount.
Paramount
I
Plus.
think I saw a clip of them trying out one of the warthogs. That's the production crew were trying out one of the Warthogs because they actually built one
Hmm.
and they drove it around crazy like you would drive a Warthog, and they actually crashed it into something,
Oh
and
God.
it came away without a scratch.
Dang, that's impressive engineering. But yeah, I saw all. I think it was like what 6 or 8 episodes, and
How far did it deviate from the idea of the original series?
first off, it's not canon to the story
Okay.
at all.
Oh God.
Secondly, they went with the idea of the more human aspects of the Spartan, which is fine. You can have a human story about Spartan, removing his helmet and being more human. When you're using the Master Chief, can't work because John, even without his helmet, taking off his helmet, is probably the most human character amongst the Spartans, next to his team and the others.
Hmm.
And they really tried to. They made it where he didn't know that he was abducted by UNSC as a kid. Dr. Halsey was kind of more sinister in a way, a manipulator. It spent the host of the other story of another character, which no bearing to the story. Cortana
Yeah.
was involved.
I can't
Pretty
remember which
much.
game that came from, but
Um,
it was one of the later games. They got very close to actually showing John's face.
Halo 4, legendary ending. Yeah. And they also, this is where they're also interested in the lore. For the Covenant, they also had a human that was sort of like a messenger. Looking back in the game, there's never been a human that's worked with the Covenant.
That's just to save money.
Uh, and all around, CGI was okay. Story could have been much better. Dawn, it's hard when you translate a character from game,
And place them
then
in.
the story, and then even if the story's not canon, that's no excuse you can't make a good story.
Well, that's the problem. They think they can.
Yeah,
That's the
it
that's the problem you're getting with Rings of Power, with practically everything that's going on at the moment. They think they can make a good story that will fit whatever agenda they've got.
uh, you
That's I don't I said I don't I said I don't tune in for the politics. I mean, that's not something that entertains me. If I want politics, I go to the news and look at my local channels. For that,
Funnily
it's
enough,
just like
that's what most of the fans are saying. We're not interested in the
if we want
politics.
to
We
be
just
entertained
want.
and get something off away from life, something
because
it's
yeah,
just
and I think who was it? I think it was not Al. I think it was Al Gore, who's like a very popular film critic. Not Al Gore, but Chris Gore, who said that yes, you're a movie goer. You're spending $30 on a film that's going to lecture you. You've wasted $30, and
Oh
you
yeah,
know it.
I've seen comments of people walking out of films where they say, "Well, that's 2 hours of my life I can't get back."
I think that if there's only one time that I think filmmaker does it right is Taylor Sheridan, who does Yellowstone in 1883, because he lives by the three E's: educate, entertain, and enlighten. He's done that, and in all the shows, been good stories, phenomenal characters. The politics that exist are the ones that exist within the show to help prolong the story. Nothing outside to from the real world into the show makes it in. It's only about the politics that make it in the show that help progress the story. So that's why even when I write, I try to also live by the three E's: educate, entertain, and enlighten. So yeah, I mean Halo, you're just watching that and never played the games and you play it, it's vastly different. And
I
the Spartans, I will say, the armor itself was awesome.
I like the scene of the. I think it was what they call them, the progenitors.
yeah, the
It
ancient
was in
race.
it.
Yeah,
It was in one of the. It was in one of the games because I haven't seen any of the TV programs or films. But the progenitors, they looked at the universe and they saw human beings expanding massively into the
Yes.
universe. And
Oh, the Forerunners, yes.
the Forerunners, they were scared. So
And
they decided to try and control human beings. And they
yeah,
effectively sent us back to the Stone Age.
'cause they
And
were
then they suddenly found out that we weren't expanding, we were running
yeah,
because of the
The flood.
because of
flood.
the flood.
Yeah, the Didac really kind of messed that one up, and Halo Infinite. Really looking forward to playing that game and the story and lore of Halo. I actually had written on my thing writing my own Halo story about it, which follows a character who is a Spartan 3, but he's Spartan 2, and he's kind of defective because from the games we know for Spartan 2s, their humanity was sacrificed to make them perfect soldiers. I think that's also why people had an issue with the 4s, because they acted too much like themselves, not like Spartans. And
What version was
only
John?
was 2, then Noble 6 and Noble Team were 3s, and Buck, Miranda, Buck, um, our Team Osiris, the other Spartan 4s were like upgraded ODSTs and Marines, yet acted still like ODSTs and Marines, not like acting like Spartans. The only two, in my opinion, that truly balance having their humanity but still knowing what they represent is Buck and Gabriel Thorne.
But then that smacks of desperation, doesn't it, on the side of humanity? That
Yeah,
they haven't got enough Spartans to be able to fight what they need to, so they're upgrading ODST troops.
yes, and that's why in the games Halsey despises them because they don't act like Spartans. I think even as
Yeah,
players, when they saw the Spartan 4s, we were like, "The heck is this?"
yeah.
Because
But
we've seen this.
then again, every dictatorial entity has always wanted troops that won't question orders.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
The,
definitely.
the whole thing about the SS, for example, was that if Heinrich Himmler said jump, they jumped and then asked how high.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But below the series, if you watch it, you can make your own opinion. I was decent for what I was trying to be, but that's why I like The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and now Terminal List are really, really, really good shows.
I like so I've seen the first season of Mandalorian. I still gotta go back and catch up on the next two seasons on that and take a look at the new products that they've come out with. I'm kind of looking forward to the Ahsoka story.
Same
That'll be
here.
fun.
Ahsoka, Mandalorian season 3 has been confirmed. Jedi Tales, which we're going to see young Count Dooku, which is actually interesting because we've never really seen that about Dooku. We've only heard about him. Um, I have other few shows coming out. Um, A Fisher King with Sylvester Stallone is coming out, which that looks interesting. He's a mob boss who's going to Fisher King, the Tulsa King. Fisher King's the wrong name. Tulsa King goes to Tulsa, Oklahoma to start his own criminal organization.
Yeah, he
And
basically, from what I said in the trailer on that, was in jail for quite some time. And
yeah,
the mob, yeah, we got a position for you. They scratch around a little bit. Okay, Tulsa, we'll throw you over here. That's
yeah,
what it sounded like. We're
definitely.
honoring it. We're
And
honoring it. Yeah, that's it.
one other show which I did watch but was interested in was The Witcher. Because I watched it. Now, granted, I haven't read the books. My
Or
Witcher knowledge only goes to
The
the
video
third game.
games. Yeah.
In fact, that's the only one I ever played. Even I know I have a brief idea what the story is from YouTube, and they completely deviated from the source material
Oh,
big
yeah.
time.
Well,
Well,
from what I understand, they've done a lot of Amazon's done a lot of deviation from the boys on the original source material, which is probably a good thing,
Yes.
considering some of the material that I've heard is like, oh my gosh, this is a train wreck. What's more into it? But yeah, I can see where they've had to change some stuff out on that.
But for Netflix, well, Witcher's owned by the
Yeah.
Netflix corporation, and the big changes was Triss, the love romance thing, that's completely axed. That doesn't exist in the new story. Um, Lambert is dead in the series, which is a big shock because in the games Lambert is a part of the whole story. Um, and just that whole that everything, even with Ciri killing a lot of the surviving Witchers, it's also huge too. So it's very
uh,
interesting.
Hmm.
unfortunately, that's the attitude you're getting now. They don't care about fans apart from the money that's in your wallet. They want to make a program appeal to the widest possible audience immediately, and they don't care about any backlash.
Yeah.
Oh, that does
I
remind
will
me. Have you guys heard of the fun game Diablo Immortal?
heard of it, never played it.
Well,
I,
it's basically a
I've
pay-to-win
played,
play.
I've played,
Copyrights.
I've played Diablo 1 and 2, but not
Uh,
anything else.
it has so many microtransactions in it that they've been figuring out that if you wanted to max out your characters, it would be $540,000.
No one in their lives has that kind of money.
Somebody's already spent
Nobody.
$50,000 on that game. I mean, just like, you
Oh,
guys got to be kidding. This is the person we were selling it to. It wasn't to everybody else. If you want to throw money at it, be my guest.
No,
I
no,
mean,
there are people that are that cracked that would do
yeah,
that.
that's the
They would
people that,
they would put themselves into debt right up past their eyeballs because gotta spend it, gotta spend it.
uh, that's why I'm not a big fan of micro uh, transactions. The only thing I will pay for is maybe DLCs.
yeah, something that
That's about
has,
it.
I used to play World of Warcraft.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
I got to about, I think my best character got to about level 35, and then they brought out one of the expansion packs, and I heard about people literally taking off a weekend simply so they could level this level 60 character up to level 70, which is what the expansion supplied.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I thought, no way. I mean, I like the game, but come off it.
That's ridiculous. I mean, I can't even imagine that amount of time grinding just trying to get it. I tried getting into World of Warcraft. I wasn't really interested in it. The storyline itself is just fantastic. I love the
Mm.
story.
Well,
But
I had half a dozen characters on the go for one game, and the best I managed was about level 35, and it took me literally months to get that far.
yeah,
I think for me, in a game similar to that, the highest I've probably gotten was it was actually a Lord of the Rings game, War in the North. I played from easy, medium to legendary, and it stopped me. I couldn't reach any higher levels. I was up at level 60, and the CPU characters also leveled up, and it said you cannot go any higher past level 60 unless you level up the other two characters. So I literally had to play the elf mage, a dwarf, level them up. By the way, if you haven't played War in the North, really great Lord of the Rings game, fantastic story, and it just fits right within. Lord of the Rings, because in what this story takes place, you play against a lieutenant of Sauron, which we know in the books. Sauron sent lieutenants into the northern realms to gather a force to come down south. We know when he came to, what was it? Not Moria, but oh shoot, what was the kingdom of the dwarves that
Bor.
Ironfoot ruled?
Erebor.
Erebor. Thank you, Maverick. Erebor. He actually held the line against
Yeah,
the lieutenants of Sauron.
Dane of the Iron Hills out of the Lonely Mountain.
Yes. Yeah, and I think you meet Dane Ironfoot in the game. You literally have to defend Erebor against trolls, um, orcs, urukai, sappers that are just suicide. I hated those characters in the game. They just suicide you, and it's
The
not
impress
fair.
the impression I got from the book, The Lord of the Rings, was that the Uruk-hai were actually created by Sauron. Sorry, Saruman, when he crossbred wild men of the south with the orcs.
Yeah, that's what I actually have the whole Lord of the Rings trilogy in a book, and yeah, because if I haven't read it fully, but from my knowledge from
I've
videos
read
of
it.
people who,
I've read it a dozen times.
but from my knowledge, he never truly. There's never really. I mean, their orcs exist, and he writes about them. He never truly gives a name to the other armies of enemies, the armies of Sauron. Like he lists what could be Urukai, but he never really gives them the name of Urukai. Then again, I could be mistaken.
Well,
I always,
as
I
much
always
as I'd
got the
like to hang around a
impression.
bit further, I'm gonna have to bow out here, um, and shut things down on my end over here. Um, wish you guys good luck, and we'll catch you all next time on the next roundtable meeting.
Definitely, Simon. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I got some fun stuff
take
and
it
work to
easy.
do.
All
All right,
right, take it easy.
thank you.